Okay, are we ready? So please welcome the panel up here. And hello, everybody. Good evening, good afternoon. It's a wonderful day, isn't it? Yes, great. And it's really a great festival. I must admit, I've seen the program, more than 100 authors and publishers and journalists, and it's really impressive. So I just want to give a round of applause for the organizer. So today, my name is Nina Hansen. I'm a Norwegian journalist and author. I've written 6 books. I've never been to a book fair, but so that means I'm neutral. But I have written a book now, so I guess that book will go on the book fair this year. It's a children's book about plastic pollution, so that's my advertising. I start with that, because men always do that, so I've decided to do that. I'm very, very happy to be an honor to be the Madam Chair, and please call me Madam Chair. If you want to speak to me, you call me Madam Chair. And I'm so grateful to actually chair this session, because it's really, really a very nice session. And as you already know, Norway is the guest of honor of the Frankfurt Book Fair this year. So we will discuss what's the point of this book fair? And we'll ask, is it worth it, 55 million krona? And I will also invite you to actually speak about the future of book fair, because we are living in a world with digitalization and all these things happening, and e-books and audiobooks, and I just want to have a session about that at the end. But first, I'll let the panel speak for 2 minutes about the relation to the book fair, just to get to know. I do this as a marathon. I'm a marathoner. I run a Berlin Marathon, actually, and the other marathons. So we start with a warming up, and then we go through, and then we have 3 sessions where we discuss the topic of book fair, and then economy, and then the future. And then I'll like to involve all of you in the audience. Not all of you, but at least some of you. So we have an extra microphone. Does it sound okay? Yes. It's okay? And then I have to say that it's all recorded, and we are actually more people in the room that's not here, because it's streamed. And so it's your choice. You can either be dull and boring, so nobody remembers this debate, or you can actually say something and we'll all be famous because of this debate. So it's up to you. And I'd like some temperature here. And you know, if you do like jokes or fun, I love it. What do you think about that? Yes, this is going to be fun. So I'd like to introduce first of all of you, it's Lars Birkenberg. You are there. Yeah, you have to say hello to the public.
Hello.
And yes, thank you. And then we have Haldor Gudmundsson here by my side.
Hi.
Yes, and Arve Juritzen.
Hello, hello.
Yes, and then we have Lars. No, we have Clemens.
No, exactly, Clemens.
Clemens.
Hello, everybody.
Yes. And so, and if you come with Freudian slips, they are welcome here. I love that. I always do that. Sometimes I actually fall off the stage when I do this thing. So it's going to be very fun. So I think now we start with 2 minutes each. And I'd like first, I think, Clemens, because I've forgotten about you earlier. I think you're going to start. You are a journalist and author. Your CV, as I told you, is very impressive. He's been working for Die Welt, the Wall Street Journal, this site, National Geographic. Wow. And I also know you currently are working with the Norwegian embassy, so you actually speaks Nordic countries as well, Nordic kind of thing. Yes. So, but please give us some 2 minutes about your relation to book fair.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I have to think about the musician share when you say Madam Chair, but okay, that's maybe not the worst. Yes, exactly. As you said, I'm working now for the Norwegian embassy. When I was asked to be on this panel, I was still an independent journalist. I just started to work for the embassy beginning of February. So now I'm in a little bit different role, but of course I try to be as independent as possible. And then I'm German, so no jokes to be expected from my side. Sorry for that. My relation to book fairs is, well, as I said, in my role as from the embassy, I'm now working with making the fair known in Germany and making also Norwegian authors known in Germany. And what I know, I've been writing for these magazines you mentioned and a few others before I started the Norwegian embassy, more about visual arts than about literature. Visual arts, they also have a lot of fairs. So I always attended the fairs in Basel and Cologne and London and many other places, and in the Nordics and Stockholm. So I know, to start with, I know that kind of fairs better than the literature fairs, but I was happy to be at the Frankfurt Book Fair for the first time when Haldor was heading the Icelandic program there. And what I know, and I think which is also what I can tell you here as a former journalist, and what I think people in Germany might be aware of, but people in Norway might not be aware of that much, that being a guest of honor at the Frankfurt Book Fair is almost as if you would, as if there would be the World Mastership in football in Norway suddenly. Like you get so much attention, but actually for much less money, because you know how much it costs to get the Olympic Games or the football World Mastership to your country. But suddenly in the German media landscape, there will be so much more attention on Norway because you're the guest of honor. And also there will be writings about everything that happens in Norway, basically. Not only about literature, but a lot about literature, of course, but also about politics, about economics, about plastic pollution, maybe about likestilling. Now I'm missing the English word. Equality, exactly.
We are missing some women in the panel here.
Yeah, I was thinking about that as well. But before that, I was at a panel, there were only women, so that was good. An average. It's different. So this is what I can tell you here, and I enjoy book fairs, but what's also interesting for me, having visited a lot of art fairs, going to a book fair then, it's like very different. While art fairs are like let's say it's very relaxed to be on an art fair. Well, if you get to the book fair, in particular to Frankfurt, because it's so big and there are many more people, it can be very stressful as well, but it also says something about the importance of the Frankfurt Book Fair. And I think I got my 2 minutes now.
Thank you very much. And I think we'll go to Haldor now, because you're born in Reykjavik, and you know, I know you have a long and outstanding career from literature and culture, and you also chair, as Clement said, you know, the Sagenhaftet Iceland. Yes, almost like that. Iceland's main project at the book fair in Frankfurt. And now he's actually leading the Norwegian, and he's working with Nola, with the Norwegian Guest of Honor project. So welcome.
Thank you.
2 minutes.
2 minutes about book fairs. After your introducing speech, you get a little bit intimidated because I'm told to tell jokes and fall off the stage and have some Freudian slips. So I hope we all are going to have fun. But I can tell you one thing. My first Frankfurt Book Fair, when I was a very young Icelandic publisher, was in 1985. And the first thing that you see is that there are so many books and so many people around that all your cultural pessimism, which already was strong at that time, simply disappears. Because you see so many people that are interested in books, that are looking for books, that are looking for new books. And I thought I would go home after the first day, because how on earth should I come with a new book into this world of 7 million titles over there? So it was great fun, and it was very intimidating. And we didn't have any stand from Iceland, so I just walked around and tried to find out what was happening here. And after a few years, I learned that this was a great way to look for new books. And after I had been a publisher for 15 years, I thought the only thing you can do at book fairs is meet old friends. And now, all these years later, I'm come to the conviction that it's all about both. Looking for new books, meeting old friends, and trying to establish a human contact about the content that, after all, is the most interesting thing about the commodity of books, the content it's all about.
Thank you very much. You can give a round of applause to each of them. Even if you don't agree, it's okay. And then we go over to Lars. You started your career in a bookstore, and you have also a vast experience of different publishers in Germany. And now you actually work for Frankfurt Book Fair. So you will be one of the experts here. So welcome, 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I'm going to Frankfurt for professional reasons since 25 years. I started as a bookseller, then I worked, as Madam Chair said, for different publishers. Then I founded my own small independent publishing house, which we have to give up after 10 years to a bigger house where I worked in Berlin for Aufbau Verlagsgruppe as a marketing director. And since nearly 3 years, I'm working with and for the Frankfurt Book Fair. I'm in charge for the developing of the German trade, or let's say trade publisher. Trade publisher stands for popular fiction, non-fiction, and this kind. And what we are doing right at the moment is that we try to look for, to bring the future in focus and to look after what we have to change, how we have to develop this fair, and what is it meant to be in 5 or 10 years. That's the aim of it.
That's good. That's good for the last session. So now over to Arve. You can actually give a round of applause. I think we should be nice to each other today. Arve, you have been everything, I mean, in Earth. You know, you've been a journalist, editor, author of at least 6 books, publisher, and you're a well-known figure in Norway. And you started your own publisher in 2006, and I know you recently sold it, but you probably have some experience with Book Fair too. You're welcome.
Thank you. First of all, Entschuldigung for not speaking German. That kann ich nicht. So I think you'll try better to do it in English. Also, thank you for having me. It's a little bit fun because I know I was long down on the list when you tried to find someone that would not so over-enthusiastically applaud the book fair. So I understand that you know it's hard to have a different opinion, and those who have already spoken out sort of didn't want to be here, but I'm going to try my best. My story is that for 14 years I've been a publisher, and one of my jobs has been to find new books to buy rights. So I went as a first-year publisher to London, to Bologna, and to Frankfurt. And I hated it, so I stopped going. So I only done it once. Why I hated it? I don't know. It just felt a lot of time, which sort of could be used better, and you know, all the big deals are done in advance. But it's one thing that was not so smart, and that, or is one thing I think that you get on the book fair, and that is sort of a better contact with all the people that you are making deals with. So I guess I should have gone more often, but only been once.
Very good.
Okay.
Let's give a round of applause to Arve. So now we start the fun, yeah? We start the first session. What's the point of this book fair? Is it just an excuse for a big party for publisher, Haldor?
It's a wonderful excuse for a great party, and one should always also try to use it that way. And why is that? Because it's the opportunity you have to meet the people that you are working with all the time. You can be working with them on email and on the net and on mail or on phone, or even, if I go back to my time as publisher, even on telex, if anybody should remember that. So you just need this personal possibility of making yourself an impression of people that you are dealing with. Let me say, I was a literary publisher, so I was looking for literature, for exciting new authors, for books that were really exciting. It was before the time that you got all sent by PDF and so forth, so you got sent some books, and you had to listen to recommendations. And the best meetings you had, for example, that was meeting your colleagues, because literary publishers in Europe, there may be 100. It's not a huge amount of people. You meet them and you exchange views, and you get to know the people, and you get to know how they think and how they chose their books. So I found it very useful. And sometimes I must say I could hate it in between, but this possibility of the personal connection was very important for us. And let me also say one other thing, because I worked on the other side also. I was also selling books and presenting Icelandic literature in England in 1995 is what I will never forget, because it was totally hopeless. The English publisher said to you, we have 500 million people writing and reading English. Why on earth should I find the one strange person in London who knows Icelandic and get him to translate? He's probably a freak, and it's going to be very difficult for us. But then these things happened at book fairs. It happened in Frankfurt exactly this year that Jostein Gaarder became a superstar in the world. And what did that mean? Not only for him, but also for Nordic publishers. It meant that the whole market, which had been mostly interested in Latin American literature, South American literature, turned towards the north. And they asked themselves, what is happening in the north? And then it was great to be there. And suddenly you had a chance also with Icelandic literature into English.
You can ask for the word, but you have to say Madam Chair. But Clemens, I've heard it's like you have to make a speed dating. I mean, that's what the publisher do. They make like the full plan for this, and it's like moving a Norwegian city into Frankfurt, they say, and then you are at work and you have speed dating. How is it really?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure I'm the right person to answer that part. Not that I don't know anything about speed dating, but I'm not in the
Well, I'm not talking about romantic speed dating.
In the publishing, no, because I'm from the publishing business. I've attended the book fair, and what I saw there is like, of course, there are like these lot of meetings, and you have some stands are very small because it's very expensive to be presented there, and then the people have to have these very fast meetings, and then they go somewhere to have a talk. But I guess from the business side of view, probably all the three others, they can tell more about that, while I know more about what effect the book fair can have on the general public, I would say. But I agree on the case when you ask, it's an excuse for a big party. Firstly, I think you never need an excuse for a party. You can always have parties without any reason. And besides that, I think it's always good if you also party with the people you work with, because then you get to know them better. And in the informal meetings, while you have a talk which maybe is not focused on a deal directly, or you're not always talking on a certain book, about a certain book, but sometimes these discussions, getting to know each other better in a different way, in a more informal situation, like at a party, also has a huge positive effect on later working, when you later work together.
So Arve, are you going to join the party? I mean, Norway is the guest of honor, and you heard all these nice people. And do you want to go there? And I also have to ask you, what is it for authors to go to a book fair?
I was just thinking. I was thinking about the best party, and I think the best party when it comes to book fairs is when everybody from Norway can go to the Norwegian embassy in London. I think that is quite a good party, I heard. If it's something for the authors, of course. I mean, to be serious for a second, a trade fair for books is as important as it is for any other business. And it's important to be there to meet people. But it's also possible to run a book publishing company without going. For authors, absolutely. I'm sure it's an inspiration. I mean, locked up in their working office for a year, and then suddenly you meet people and see a lot of other books, and so I'm sure that's inspiring. But I think it boils down to that the main deals are done before or after the fair. But for the trade reason, yes, it's absolutely good. Is it doing something for the readers? Is it worth the money, madam? Is that something you want to discuss?
Madam Chair?
I think madam is fine.
No.
So I think that's the question. I mean, I think we all agree that a trade fair is fine, and everyone should pay for going there. Next year or this year, someone else is paying. And I think the question is, could that money be used more wisely?
Now you're always on the next session here.
We need to get going.
But Haldor, what do you expect the outcome of this year?
Well, the exciting thing, the possibilities that are there, nothing is given. I mean, you have to use the opportunity you have. You have to be there, and you have to show the best things that you have to show content and authors and literature. But if we look at the long-term effect, and that's the only thing that really matters, then you have to look at translations from a country that is guest of honor 3 years before versus 3 years after. And if I do this for Iceland, which of course know best because I was responsible for that in 2011, you could see in 2007 or 8, about 40 Icelandic books were translated into foreign languages. And if you took 3 years after the book fair, it had doubled. And it had doubled permanently. That is, 80 to 100 Icelandic titles are translated every year. That is quite a fundamental change for a small country like ours at that time, and it was important for Icelandic author and Icelandic literature. So in that sense, if you take these, I think there are similar figures for Finland, for example. I don't know it well enough, but as far as I have seen, it's like that. You have doubled something. And now if you take a look at Norway, about 1,000 titles were translated from Norwegian last year into some language. About 600 of them were supported by Norla. And if you go 10 years back, or a little bit more than that, to 2004, there were 100 titles being supported.
So how many titles do you expect after this
We already
year?
know that there are 250 titles coming in German. But the interesting thing about Frankfurt, which we should mention, is that it is in the center of the German book market. And the German book market is the one that is most curious about other countries, translates the most. They have titles, more than 20% of titles published in German are translations, where it is, as famously known in a publishing house, less than 3% in England. And novels translated in America are less than 1% of novels published there. So the Germans are curious, and that means other book markets look towards Germany. Success there can mean success in other places.
And you shouldn't forget that, for example, there are more people speaking or reading
you
German
didn't say
than...
Madam Chair.
I thought only if I want to have a question.
You have to, well, you can do
Okay.
this.
Madam Chair, I want to add here, if I may.
Yeah, no problem.
We shouldn't forget about that there are more people in the world, meaning also in France and the UK and wherever, who speak and read German than Norwegian. So German is also a way to kind of get those interested in Norwegian literature, because once it's translated into German, they might be able to read it, while some people might not be able to read it when it only exists in Norwegian, and then might think about, okay, let's get into our own language as well.
Yes, Lars?
Yes, I would like to point out some unique points from Frankfurt, because it was already a bit mentioned. Frankfurt Book Fair is not a German fair, it's an international fair. So, and it gives you the opportunity to, on both sides, to present you and your literature and your country to the international scene, and to the international market, and to the German market. And then we have, a book fair is not a book fair, they're not same. You have book fairs from Taipei to Istanbul, over to Guadalajara, whatever. They are mostly public fairs. And Frankfurt has both sides. The professional days, 3 days only for professionals, and 2 days for the German or for the general public. And this is a great difference to all other fairs in the world. And that's why Frankfurt became the largest book fair in the world, in the name of the number of exhibitors, and it's the largest event for publishing media and all these things. And this is always a bit confusing in those discussions, because Frankfurt offers you, it's like a gate to the international market, and that's, I think, is the point, and this will be the point to make to reach a sustainability of the guest of honor presentation. Yeah, if you have a good preparation, presentation, and good follow-ups, then you reach all your aims, like Haldor already mentioned.
Thank you very much. I actually, before Arve is getting the word, I actually read the application. I spent the whole Easter reading the application. I didn't read any other books, so it's very impressive. And while you're talking, Arve, I'd like to ask the audience if you want to ask question and comment before we start about the economy.
I'm ready to talk economy now.
Yeah, but unless the audience wants to ask a question, because we have a microphone here. Anyone? Anyone? Come on. No? Okay, let's go.
Well,
Is it worth it?
Let
55
me
million.
absolutely be clear that I am not against Frankfurt or any other trade
Yes, sure.
book fairs. They are useful for the trade. What I think is really, really strange is that we are going to use 50 million when there are so many things that desperately need money within the book community. We have libraries without the right books. We have a youth generation that's not reading. We have school libraries. This is hard.
Libraries.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
With very few books. So I think those 50 millions, or at least the 40 millions given to us by the government, could be used so much
Well, I
better
think it's
and
only
useful.
30 actually from the government, and the rest from the private investors.
30 can also do a lot.
Yeah.
So
I
that's
know.
my point, that I think, you know, I didn't quite get the numbers from the Iceland experience, but I understand it's like a couple of hundreds more sold books, and I think if you divide that with 40 millions, it's get quite an exclusive sales, those few books, which is great, of course, for the author. So I just think that it's too much money who could be spent so much wiser on other fields, of course, within the book community.
Could you just be more precise? You know, how could we invest this money otherwise to promote Norwegian literature?
First of all, fewer and fewer authors are published. You know, the lists are shrinking in every publishing house. It's harder and harder to get published, which I think is nice, since I have a self-publishing company. Promotion. No, seriously, it's so hard to be published these days, so I think authors need a lot more money to be able to develop themselves, to develop their story, to be able to spend more time on writing the hard book number 2 and so on. I think there need to be more money. And it also, the publishing houses need funding to develop new authors. It costs a lot, it is a lot of work, and of course you don't get the money back. So I think all this money could be used for getting more authors published, give authors more time to write better books. And I'm also desperately sad when it comes to the libraries, especially in the schools, who have so few books and who have so many outdated books. So those money could be spent wiser.
So, Haldor, you chair the Icelandic project, and now you're chairing the Norwegian one. And you said something about the long-term effect, but is it worth it? 55 million?
It's not a question from my point of view that it's worth it. It's, of course, the always killing everything argument that you could spend the money in another way. You can always say that. You can also say you could spend this money to help hunger in the world, or do something that's still more important than anything that we might say about books. But what I feel is lacking in your argumentation is that this is also making the market larger for nations like yours and mine. It is developing, it's giving the authors, since you also talked about the authors, it's giving them possibilities to reach out to far more readers than you do if you're only published here. I think that's the main thing that you should never forget, that this is also, it's both a presentation, it's a cultural presentation, but it's also about the possibility of authors from countries like ours, with languages that not many people understand, that they can reach out. And if that's why I use this criteria, are there more translations now than were before? Are there more? I'm not sure that I could do it mathematically, that I would say this money all came back to us. But think about Iceland, for example, in 2011, it was just after the financial crisis. We had also to show that we had something else than being bad bankers. We had also to show that we have literature and culture, and don't forget that the guest of honor presentation in Frankfurt is also a great cultural presentation, where you bring theaters and exhibition and so forth. You bring forward your culture, and you work on a dialogue. And what we need most of all now, as you see as the world is developing, is a cultural dialogue where we are a part of it.
What kind of cultural activities are you bringing to Frankfurt from Norway?
There will be exhibitions and visual arts. There's going to be architectural exhibitions, photo exhibitions, painters. There's going to be theater, and there's going to be concerts and so forth. Now, many of these things take place anyway. But what Clemens also said before, the thing about Frankfurt is not least the media attention that you get when you're there. You get a lot of media attention. There's a huge attention of media to the Frankfurt Book Fair. Don't forget, for 2 years ago, Angela Merkel and Macron opened the book fair. But half of this attention goes only to the guest of honor. So it's a PR and marketing thing that you do not get many opportunities for.
But can I skip, madam?
Yes.
Can I skip with a
Yes.
question? I mean, do everybody agree on that the number one thing, the most important thing within the book publishing business in Norway is to get more books translated? I don't know. Isn't there other more important things that we should have focus on? I think so.
Like the content?
Like the content, as I said, like the authors, like the fact that we are getting fewer and fewer authors published. There are fewer and fewer publishing houses left. It's shrinking so hard and so fast, and I'm sure we will see much more of that within the year.
Now we open for discussion. Come on, Clement.
Yes,
you
okay. I hope there will be questions from the floor
Yeah,
as well.
I'd like you to actually prepare some questions now.
Because thank you very much, Madam Chair. It's the first time that I've been attending 3 more meetings here. Never anybody asked other questions from the floor. And I think it's very important to give the.
No,
but you're doing it at
I
least.
challenge you, and
Other
especially the
people,
women.
other people didn't ask the audience, but I think it's very good that the audience gets the
Yeah.
possibility. What I would like to add is like 2 things. Firstly, I have to say I'm working in the culture now, but I'm educated as an economist and political scientist. So I'm also looking at figures, and I sometimes even like looking at numbers. And what I think is very important to ask this question, can the money be used elsewhere more wisely? Because otherwise, maybe this time it's 55 million, next time 500 million. If you don't ask these questions and you don't have the checks and balances by journalists or other publishers questioning or doubting whether it's a good way, you might just waste the money. But I don't think it's wasted at all here, the money, because, and there I would disagree, Arvi, as I said earlier, you shouldn't set it in relation only to the number of translations later. But as I said, Norway will get a lot of attention, for example, in the media in general, in Germany, but not only in Germany because of that. Haldo mentioned already art exhibitions coming to Norway. He didn't mention names so far, but it's besides others, Munch will come to Germany. He's of course very well known in Germany as well already, but there will also be, which is my favorite, an exhibition in Frankfurt with Hanna Rüggen, which is very well known in Norway, of course, the artist, but in Germany almost unknown. She was presented at the Documenta, not the last one, the one before, 7 years ago. But otherwise not really in Germany. I think it's important to have these opportunities as well. And then I think also it should be known, as Haldo said, of course you can always argue you can invest the money better. At least to my knowledge, the money which is spent now on the project has not been taken away from libraries or something, which I can imagine that they might also need more money. But it's not that there was, the politicians said, okay, we take away these 30 million roundabout, which comes from the government, we take it away from the library here, the library there, and then spend it on Frankfurt. This is not the case, so it's not like that kind of trade-off. And by the way, I mean,
Actually, sorry to interrupt, but I think that the libraries are getting fewer and fewer funds. I think it was cut in the last budget. Anyone correct me if that's wrong?
Anyone from the government here?
But I
No.
think actually the library's budget was cut.
but the question if it's cut because of Frankfurt is the second question. But
You
then you
never know.
have the new Dijkmanske, which is, I guess, some money spent there. But I agree, and I think that's really good that you have to discuss and you have to question whether it's wisely used, which I think it is.
Lars Haldor is saying that you get a lot of publishing from journalists and media and so on. How are you going to attract all these journalists to Frankfurt?
How we attract them,
Yeah.
I mean.
Because, you know, it's tough in the media business too.
Yes, because it's really one of the largest cultural events we have in Europe, with nearly 300,000 people coming, and you have a cultural focus, you have political focus, and it's not only about publishing. And I think it's also about, Frankfurt is a great opportunity for the whole publishing industry to present how do you say it?
In German. You can say it in German.
How important our industry is for all of us in a cultural sense and a political sense. And the backbone of our industry is the freedom of speech, is the freedom of publishing. And all these themes are discussed really in Frankfurt. And there are many stories to tell about these themes. Maybe you remember that Salman Rushdie was once opening Frankfurt Book Fair, and Iran came to the fair. And there are so many implications of the fair, and it reaches really worldwide. And that is why the people come and are still interested. I mean, the publishing industry is changing a lot, and also the fair business is changing a lot in these days. You go, I mean, the only presentation isn't enough, and what we try to support in Frankfurt is that the networking aspect, the aspect of innovation, the aspect of politics, and this is, I think, a really great opportunity also for Norway to be seen in this big, huge context.
Okay, I'd like you to ask a question, if you want. Do you want to say something? Helge, you have something to say? Yeah, just one question. I just challenge you.
I don't really have anything to say, but I could add something in.
Talk in the microphone so we can hear you. Yeah, just...
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Good. I was just going to make a comment to Arve Juritzens' downplaying of his role. Actually, you were not the first person we asked, that's true. But the first person we asked was Jan Kjærstad, because he was the one who wrote a long article in Aftenposten criticizing the decision for Norway to be the guest of honor. And then we tried to find out who has supported Jan Kjærstad. And that we found you were one of those. And then we thought that you are also a sort of enfant terrible in the Norwegian publishing industry.
Getting grey.
So we decided that that might be a good idea to have you on board.
Do you want to comment on the 55 million?
So thank you. So thank you for agreeing to do that.
Thank you.
About the 55 million, you know, these are not 55 million that would have gone elsewhere. They are 55 million that had this particular purpose. And that is part of it. So when Arve says that, well, they could have been used for the libraries. Well, I quite agree libraries need more money. But these 55 million or 30 million or whatever came from the government, they wouldn't have gone to the libraries. They probably would have gone somewhere entirely different. So the point is that when you want to do a special thing like the Frankfurt Book Fair is, you also work to get special funding for that, also special quotes from the government, special votes from the government in relation to that.
Thank you, Helge. And one more question.
Then I pass it on to Kristen Einarsson.
Yes.
Well, just a comment. The great thing about the criticism of the spending of the government is that they decided in October last year to spend exactly the same amount of money on reading campaigns in Norway this year. So the government gave 30 million kroners to Frankfurt, and the Minister of Culture decided last autumn to use another 30 million kroners for reading campaigns in Norway in what is called the book year 2019. And now those 30 millions have been spread out to a lot of activities. So that was a great part of criticizing it. They gave another 13 millions, which tell us something. Norway is a country which is willing to spend money on cultural activities. So it's up to our imagination to find new ways of asking for new money, because that's the only way you get new money. So Arve, please, you know, I invite you for a coffee and you can tell me what should be the next activities we should ask the Norwegian government to.
Thank you for the question. Is it any more question, and then you can answer?
Just going to quickly follow up because,
okay.
you know, I hear that you are enthusiastic about the Munch and everything traveling around, not on the account of the book publishers, please. The book publishing need all that money, so I think applaud for those of you who actually got all this money from the government and even got some more. You did a great job. Should we applaud that, madam?
Yeah, we do
We
that.
are. And the most interesting, because this is like tiny little money from the government. It's like nothing what they spend on other trade fairs and other businesses. So it's a great beginning. But the interesting thing is going to see what you that are representing the business are. If this is like going to be their answer, well, we gave you money, you're not going to get anything more, or wow, this worked out fine, here are more money. I think that is what we should evaluate this fair, if it's open up or if it's closing the money.
Haldor, do you want to comment on that?
I was just thinking about what Arve said earlier, that whether it was the most important thing for Norwegian publishing that books are translated. That is, of course, not for me to say. Without translation, other people in the world cannot read them. But there might be far more important things for Norwegian publishing to do than getting translated. But what's most important for the book business is that books are written and books are read. And you strengthen the writers when their books travel, because they get reactions from other people, from people who are not limited to our little circles here, but from other countries who have a totally different background. And I don't really know any authors who have not been strengthened by translations in their own writing. And at the same time, translations also strengthen the readership. So I think this answers a bit the question about the importance of translation.
Thank you. And then Clemens?
Yeah, what I think is also interesting to know, maybe some Norwegians are not aware of, but if you look at the system, how literature is financed in Norway and how many support possibilities you have, I guess that a lot of people would say we need more money, of course, but I know, for example, the system in Germany. I've published a book in Germany about the Norwegian Oil Fund, by the way, so it was related to Norway. And because of that, I've been talking also to a lot of people publishing books in Norway. And when you publish a book in Germany, usually it's like totally, you have to deal with the conditions of the market. There is no much support possibilities. While in Norway, it's much more likely that you will get some support from Fritt Ord or from other foundations for your research period. And if you do, whether you're what kind of literature ever you're writing in Germany, you just have to cope with the possibility or the conditions of the market. And I think here you have more possibilities already. I think that's also something which maybe is not enough appreciated, because you don't know the conditions of other countries. Which of course means if you make it really big in Germany, you might earn much more because it's a much bigger market, but that's still very unlikely to make it.
And then Lars, do you want to comment on the economy?
Yeah, no, I just want to add that whatever millions you are talking here they are not going directly to Frankfurt. Yeah, I just wanted to say it because they come. This are the grants for the translators. These are the artists coming. These are all the people involved in the guest of honor presentation, and it's not for us, you know.
So then it's the question: how much is going to Frankfurt? How expensive is it to be the country of honor?
It's the smallest part, I guess.
Numbers?
Thank you. And Arve, do you want to finish that session before we move into the future?
No, I'm really happy that for this opportunity. I just hope it's not going to be an it's called excuse goat, like that, you know, the politicians are going to say, well, you got the money, so don't come here anymore. And I still think that, you know, could we have achieved what we are going to achieve without spending all the money on Frankfurt? Could it be done otherwise? I hope that has been discussed, and we can continue discussing that.
Thank you. I also want to ask you, Haldor, why did you actually choose the dream we carry? That's the slogan, isn't it?
Because we have to keep that part of it with us. There is the marketing part, there is the trade part. It is, as you said, it's a trade fair, but we also have to keep literature with us. And literature is always about dreams. I think it was the Danish philosopher Willy Sørensen who said that culture was for the society like dreams are for the individual. If you don't have any dreams, you get crazy. If you're always waking up when you're sleeping, when you start dreaming, you get totally crazy. And the same goes for the societies. So they have to have a dream, and this dream we are carrying also to other countries.
Very good. I think we should give a round of applause for this session. And now it's the last session, and I challenge you again, and please, women in the audience, please just think about at least one question. That would be very nice. So we are moving into the future. The world is changing, digitalization, where literature is being published on different platforms, e-books, audiobooks, and etc. And people are changing the way they are reading books and they're reading literature. Do the book fair take this in account? We can start with Lars.
I mean, the book fair maps the development in the publishing industry. So, and we are looking closely to that. And what you can see, or these are all the challenging for all nationwide, is the rise of the mobile devices, etc. This is one point where we have to look for answers how we can compete with this changing processes, and we should look that the content, the books, the novels are get into audio, get into film, get into theater and TV series, and I think all the stories we have in the books, we should look after to spread them more in the consumable way people receive media and content. This is one, I think, a global perspective on the publishing industry.
Yeah, Arve, do you want to comment on that?
I'm going to be very boring on this topic because
Okay.
I'm not interested at all in technical things. To me, it's all about content and stories. If it's printed on paper, or if someone read it on the Kindle or listen to it by the phone, it really doesn't matter. It's about content. It's someone has sitting down, creating a story, creating characters. It's about the dreams that we just heard about, nourishing the dreams. So, you know, it's some years ago we didn't have paper. Now we have a lot of paper and we have a lot of other stuff, and I'm sure there's going to be other ways to get stories told that we even don't know about today. So to me, it's all about someone has to sit down by themselves, creating something magical, and we are able to read it or hear it, and it really doesn't matter how it's sort of given to us.
What about you, Haldor? Do the organizer behind Book Fair reflect on the new digital area? Do you think so? I mean, is it only books, or is it, you know?
I'm sure they do, but now I have totally to agree with Arve. This is how I see publishing also. I see it's about creation of stories, and not exactly, and not always about the way you tell them, because there are all kinds of ways now to bring forward stories. Gutenberg has survived for quite a lot of time if you compare it to other devices. And you know, you talked about the digital books, that you could just move on in them like nothing, that you can also do in printed books. So it's, I think it's about that. And if I've known the Frankfurt Book Fair for a long time, should I give any advice to them? I would say stress that. Stress the content. Try to act more like a literary festival in a way. If we compare it with, for example, with
that's what we're also doing.
I know, but this is how I see it. The Leipzig Book Fair is a great reading festival for everybody who comes there. The Göteborg Book Fair is also a very great literary festival. I think that's quite important, that you have it like a feast for readers to come and enjoy stories in whatever package they might be.
Clemens, do you want to comment?
Yes, maybe what I want to say, as I said, I'm an economist, but still I think what we're discussing on this panel is a lot about money, but we should all be aware of why do we read, what's literature about, and at the end we don't buy books to give a job to other people or to create more GDP for Norway, but literature as arts as well gives us different perspectives on life, which we might otherwise not have gotten, and it kind of serves enlightenment and dreams, as Haldor said. So I think this is very important to keep in mind always. Also, if we have to discuss the trade part, we have to discuss the financial part, because everything has to be financed in one way or the other. But we should not forget, and not only on the business level, on the industry level, but also everybody personally. Just think about the last book you've read, which gave you a lot and which you think interesting. Maybe everybody has his favorite story. I've just I've just read 2 books by, I'm the ghostwriter of Thomas Espedal. No, I've just read 2 books by him. And it was so interesting to read those books, which I had known about them for some time, but I hadn't had the time. I had other priorities, read other books before, and then to see how much it can give you to have these books. Or there are novels like, sorry to quote a Swedish one, but Stig Dagerman's novel Att döda ett barn, To Kill a Child. It's a novel which I've read probably 100 times in my life, and each time I'm like very taken by the story. And I think these kind of things which literature and arts can give to us, we should not forget about, also if we have to talk money.
It seems like everybody is agreeing on the content. It's important. And Lars, but is it right to call it actually book fair? Shouldn't we call it multi-platform fairs?
Yes, that's a good point. Yeah, it's
Yeah. You get that idea for free from me. Yeah.
No, we are discussing seriously. We are talking about these topics because the book fair indeed is much more than a fair about books. It's the largest marketplace for content in general. Might be software, or may it be the good novels the colleagues were talking about, for sure. And we are trying to bring more creative industries to Frankfurt. We're looking to reach out for more all these activities existing, and we are looking to other markets how the digital works there and what it means for them. And so, yes, but in the heart it's a book fair, so it would be a lie to call it a different way. That's my opinion.
Yes,
Now, jumping,
Arve?
I don't think you should be too much tempted by Madam, because it is
Madam
about
Chair.
Madam Chair. It is about the content, and I think if you spread the fair out too much,
Yeah, but not only a book is a content. That's the point.
I know, but it's, I think the technical side and all that, it's really not gonna sort of be
So-
what we are
We'll see.
have focus on.
I'm going to challenge you again. Anyone? No? Because I know we are going to the opening ceremony very soon, and the Crown Princess is coming, and everybody. So I just want to ask you, Haldo, next year Canada will be the guest of honor. Will it be a Canadian-German festival before next year? Like this? Is this a good idea?
I think it's a great idea, and I don't think that any guest of honor country has really done what the Norwegians are doing, that to make a German literary festival towards Frankfurt like they're doing here. I think it's wonderful because it shows also the whole sense of this is also to bring new authors to new readers. And that's what you do with a festival like this.
What do you think, Lars, about this seminar?
Yeah, it's a great opportunity for networking and to get prepared for autumn, and it's really a great idea. And what I like most, and this idea that is driven by authors. So we come back to that point.
Arve?
Well, for once, I'm just happy and joyful, and think this is like marvelous. Yeah, I was, you know, what I was sort of looking for when I first heard it, I said, I hope there will be something for the Norwegian readers in Norway, because elsewhere it just will go out as a trade fair. So I think this is perfect. Hope it will be something more and maybe something after.
Clemens?
Yeah, I also agree, and I want to say thank you very much for everybody who organized it. And also as a German, I can say when I opened the program, I've been in touch with the people who organized it for some time, but I finally got the program. I was really surprised how many really, really big names they managed to get up here to Oslo. You have like the top of the German authors, and as well younger as well as older ones, and also maybe some who have just published their first novel. But it's like really, I was really positively surprised. Not that I thought they were not making it possible, but still, it's like the big names who came here, and there are also very interesting ones from Norway. And at the same time, I think there's for everybody something to discover. So that's very great to have him. Maybe they should continue to have it once a year, even though there will not be Frankfurt the guest of honor in Norway the guest of honor in Frankfurt every year.
No, not every year, but every
But the
other
festival
year.
here should be good to have every
Yeah,
year.
yeah. No, I think it's also a very good idea, and I'd like to give a round of applause again to the organizer of this festival. And so this is the final. If you want, you can have 1 minute just to finish off like the politicians, or if you want to go ahead and have a beer in the sun before they start, you're welcome. Do you want to...
Yes, we are looking forward to have you in Frankfurt in autumn. So
Very good.
Well, I just hope everybody in the room can continue working for the Norwegian publishing business to be open for everybody. We need, I don't know the good English word, but mangfold. Right now, I think that is really threatened. There will be fewer and fewer publishers, fewer and fewer possibilities for authors to get published. I think that is a big, big problem for the business, and we need to do something with that.
Very good. Clemens?
Well, I would just say, think about buying even more books and give them as presents, read them yourselves, and enjoy life and have a beer outside in the sun.
Ooh, very good, very good. We like that. Haldor?
Giving the choice of being a politician or having a beer, I'll always take the second one.
Very good. And the organizer wants to give you stockfish. They have an explanation why they give you stockfish, but you can check it up on the internet or some other platform. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for sharing this.
Thank you, madam.
I like Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I hope you enjoyed it. Because, you know, it's very short time. But I
Ja, zag je dat nog? Ja, op zich wel. Dat ging heen.